The smell of burnt coolant and desperation hung thick in my workshop, or what was left of it anyway. I stared at the energy regulator that had just fried its third circuit board this week, wondering if the universe had a personal vendetta against me. My name is Calder Holt, and 3 months ago, I was the best damn starship mechanic on Rydara Station. Now I was one missed payment away from having my tools repossessed by the station's automated collection drones. The station itself was a monument to controlled chaos. Rydara Station floated in the neutral zone between 3 major galactic territories, making it the perfect haven for traders who preferred their transactions undocumented and their cargo unexamined. The main commerce ring stretched for miles, a rotating wheel of metal and composite materials that housed everything from legitimate businesses to black market dealers who'd sell you anything from Andromedan silk to military-grade plasma cores. No questions asked. My workshop occupied a cramped corner in the station's lower maintenance sector, sandwiched between a waste recycling plant and a brothel that catered to species with more than 2 genders. The location used to be prime real estate for a mechanic. Ships coming in hot from dodgy runs needed quick, discreet repairs, and I was their guy. The cascade failure that destroyed my reputation started with a simple miscalculation. One faulty diagnostic on a Calarian freighter's dark matter intake, and suddenly, I was responsible for an explosion that took out half of Docking Bay 9. Nobody died. Thank whatever cosmic forces still gave a damn. But the damages. Let's just say I'd be paying them off until the heat death of the universe, assuming I lived that long. I was contemplating whether selling a kidney to one of the organ traders on Deck 4 would cover this month's rent when my door chimed. Not the pleasant melodic chime of a paying customer, but the harsh buzz that meant someone with authority wanted in. "Open!" I called out, not bothering to look up from the fried regulator. The door hissed open, and I smelled him before I saw him. Drex Valor wore cologne that cost more than my monthly earnings, back when I had monthly earnings. It was designed to be pleasant to all known sentient species, which somehow made it offensive to all of them equally. When I finally looked up, he was standing in my doorway like he owned it, which, technically, he probably did. Drex owned half the station through shell companies and intimidation. "Mr. Holt," he said, his voice smooth as synthetic oil. "You look terrible." "Charming as always. Drex, what do you want?" He stepped into my workshop, his expensive shoes clicking against the grated floor. Drex was technically human, though generations of genetic modification had given him features that seemed just a bit too perfect, too symmetrical. His eyes were an unnatural shade of violet, and his skin had that subtle shimmer that meant he'd had dermal nanobots installed. The man was a walking advertisement for what money could buy you in the frontier territories. "I want to offer you an opportunity," he said, examining a half-dismantled gravitational compensator on my workbench with the kind of casual interest that made me want to hide my tools. "A chance to clear your debts and get back on your feet. Unless this opportunity involves time travel and a chance to undo the last 3 months, I'm not interested." "What if I told you it involved marriage?" I actually laughed. "To you, I'm flattered, Drex. But you're not my type. Too much money, not enough soul." His smile was all teeth, no warmth. "Not to me, Mr. Holt, to my ward." "Your ward?" "Sora Thal. Perhaps you've seen her around the station." Actually, everyone had. Sora was hard to miss, being a Verdanian and all. The Verdanians were one of those species that made humans feel like the universe's evolutionary participation trophy. She stood at least 8 feet tall, with skin that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue depending on the light. Her forearms moved with a grace that seemed impossible for someone of her size, and her eyes, all 6 of them, had an unsettling tendency to track different things simultaneously. The giant alien woman who could bench press a shuttle? Yeah, I've seen her. What about her? She needs a husband, specifically, a human husband. Why? Immigration technicalities, Drex said. waving his hand dismissively. Verdanian law requires her to be married to maintain her claim on certain assets. Human marriage law is wonderfully flexible in the frontier territories. You marry her, she keeps her property. You get a substantial finder's fee. How substantial? Enough to clear your debts and restart your business. Plus, you'd be co-owner of her ship. That got my attention. What ship? A Horizon-class heavy transport. Latest model. Quantum drive. The works. I felt my mouth go dry. A Horizon class was worth more than I'd make in 10 lifetimes. They were the crown jewels of the transport fleet, with engines that could jump between systems in hours instead of days. What's the catch? No catch. Simple marriage contract. You help her with the legal requirements. She shares ownership of the ship. Everyone wins. Everything about this screamed trap. But I was desperate enough to ignore the alarm bells. I want to see the contract first. Naturally. He produced a datapad from his jacket, the expensive kind with holographic projection. The contract materialized in the air between us, dense with legal text. I scrolled through it, looking for the obvious traps, but it seemed straightforward. Marriage for immigration purposes, shared ownership of assets, standard frontier territory boilerplate. When? Tomorrow. The ceremony needs to happen before the current trade cycle ends. That's in 36 hours. Is that a problem? I looked around my dying workshop, at the stack of overdue notices, at the future that was rapidly shrinking to nothing. No problem. Drex's smile widened. Excellent. I'll send you the details. Oh, and Mr. Holt. Do try to clean yourself up. Sora deserves better than grease-stained coveralls at her wedding. He left, taking his offensive cologne with him. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the contract still glowing in the air. Every instinct I had was screaming that this was a bad idea, but instincts didn't pay rent. The next 36 hours passed in a blur. I scraped together enough credits to rent a decent outfit, something that didn't scream desperate mechanic. The ceremony was held in one of the station's administrative chambers, a sterile room with white walls and uncomfortable lighting. The officiant was a bored-looking Alteran, whose tentacles kept tapping impatiently against his podium. Sora arrived exactly on time, and seeing her up close was an entirely different experience. Her formal wear consisted of a flowing robe that seemed to be made of condensed starlight, shifting and shimmering with each movement. Her 6 eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made me want to check if my rented suit had suddenly caught fire. Calder Holt, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that human vocal cords could never achieve. You are smaller than I expected. Thanks. You're exactly as tall as I expected. One of her eyes narrowed while the others remained neutral. I couldn't tell if that was amusement or annoyance. The ceremony itself was perfunctory. The Alteran officiant rattled through the legal requirements in a monotone that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. We exchanged the standard vows, signed the digital documents, and just like that, I was married to an 8-foot-tall alien woman I'd spoken to for less than 5 minutes. Congratulations, Drex said, appearing at my elbow like a well-dressed nightmare. The ship is in Docking Bay 42. Your credentials have already been updated. Sora was already walking away, her long strides eating up distance. I had to jog to keep up. So, I said, slightly out of breath. Should we talk about living arrangements? I mean, my workshop is pretty small, but... You will not be living on the ship, she said without looking at me. What but the contract says? The contract says you are co-owner. It says nothing about habitation rights. We reached Docking Bay 42, and I forgot my objection for a moment. The ship was beautiful. The Horizon-class heavy transport sat in its berth like a sleeping giant, all smooth curves and hidden power. The hull was a deep black that seemed to absorb light, with registration markings that glowed a soft blue. The resilience, Sora said. And for the first time, I heard something like affection in her voice. My family's ship. It's incredible, I admitted. Yes, and you will not be boarding it. What, but I'm co-owner. She turned to face me, all 6 eyes focusing with laser intensity. You are a legal fiction, Calder Holt. A signature on a document to satisfy bureaucratic requirements. Nothing more. The contract says, I know what the contract says. I also know what Drex promised you. But this ship is mine, and you will not set foot on it. She pressed her hand against the biometric scanner, and the boarding ramp extended with a soft hiss. I stepped forward, and the ramp immediately began to retract. What the hell? The security system has been updated. You are flagged as a potential threat. I'm your husband. You are a stranger who signed a document. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need time alone. She walked up the ramp, which sealed behind her with a finality that made my stomach drop. I stood there, staring at the closed hatch, trying to process what had just happened. Having trouble with the wife already, I spun around to find Drex standing at the entrance to the docking bay, that infuriating smile still plastered on his face. You set me up. I did no such thing. You're co-owner of the ship, just as promised. She locked me out. Marital disputes are not my concern, Mr. Holt. Though I must say, being locked out on your wedding night, that's rather embarrassing. Even for you. The urge to punch him was overwhelming, but assaulting one of the station's most powerful figures would just add to my problems. Instead, I watched him leave, his laughter echoing in the vast space of the docking bay. I tried everything over the next few hours. The ship's communication system wouldn't accept my calls. The security system actively repelled me if I got too close, using some kind of low-level force field that made my skin itch and my teeth ache. Other mechanics and dock workers started to gather, watching my increasingly desperate attempts to board my own ship. Trouble in Paradise, called out Nix, a Rithari mechanic from the shop next to mine. His species' natural bioluminescence flared with amusement. Shut up, Nix. Must be some honeymoon, standing outside your own ship like a locked-out drunk. The laughter from the gathering crowd was like salt in an open wound. I'd gone from respected mechanic to cautionary tale to comedy show in record time. As the station's artificial night cycle began, I found myself sitting on a cargo crate, staring at the Resilience. The smart thing would be to walk away, find a lawyer, contest the marriage. But lawyers cost money I didn't have, and Drex probably owned half of them anyway. Something wasn't right about this whole situation, beyond the obvious. I mean, Drex didn't do anything without 3 angles and a backup plan. He'd wanted me to marry Sora. But why? What did he gain from it? I pulled out my battered personal pad and started doing research. Sora Thal, Verdanian female. Age unknown because Verdanians measured time differently than most species. The ship was registered in her name. Had been for 5 years. Before that, it belonged to something called the Meridian Exploration Collective. That name rang a bell. I dug deeper, using some of the less legal access points I'd acquired during my years of fixing ships for people who valued discretion. The Meridian Exploration Collective had been a human deep space exploration company. They'd gone dark 8 years ago. All hands lost. Their fleet never recovered. Except, apparently, for one ship that had somehow ended up in the hands of a Verdanian woman, who was, according to the marriage certificate in my pocket, now my wife. I was so absorbed in my research that I didn't notice the subtle change in the docking bay's atmosphere until it was too late. The background hum of the station's ventilation system had changed pitch, and the few dock workers who'd been lingering had all disappeared. Mr. Holt. I looked up to find 3 of Drex's security team standing in a semicircle around me. They were the expensive kind of muscle, augmented with enough cybernetics to make them more machine than man. Drex wants to remind you, the lead one said, his voice artificially modulated to sound more threatening. That causing problems for his ward would be inadvisable. I'm not causing problems. I'm sitting on a crate. You're investigating things that aren't your concern. My wife is my concern. The lead security officer moved faster than human reflexes should allow, his hand closing around my throat and lifting me off the crate. Your wife is Drex's concern. You're just the signature. Remember that. He dropped me, and I hit the deck hard, gasping for air. By the time I looked up, they were gone, melted back into the shadows of the station. I sat there, rubbing my throat, considering my options. The smart play was to walk away. Forget this whole thing. Maybe see if that kidney sale was still an option. But I'd never been particularly smart, and something about this whole setup stank worse than the recycling plant next to my shop. I looked back at the Resilience, its black hull reflecting the dock lights like a mirror. Sora was in there, hiding from something or planning something. Drex had orchestrated this marriage for reasons that went beyond immigration law. And somehow, I was caught in the middle of it all. The universe, it seemed, wasn't done screwing with me yet. I made my way back to my workshop, careful to take the long route in case Drex's goons were following. The place looked even more pathetic after seeing the Resilience. Broken equipment, outdated tools, the ghost of a once thriving business. I collapsed onto the cot I kept in the corner for nights when I worked too late to make it back to my quarters. The marriage certificate was still in my pocket, the smart paper crinkling as I pulled it out. In the dim light of my workshop, the official seals glowed softly, mocking me with their legitimacy. Co-owner of a Horizon-class transport. It should have been the answer to all my problems. Instead, I was locked out by a giant alien wife I didn't know, threatened by a crime boss I couldn't fight, and investigating a mystery that would probably get me killed. I'd had better days. But as I lay there, staring at the certificate, a thought occurred to me. The marriage was legal. The co-ownership was legal. And while Sora could lock me out physically, there were other ways to assert ownership. The station's commercial laws were complex, but I'd spent years learning them, finding loopholes for clients who needed repairs off the books. If I couldn't get onto the ship, maybe I could find another way to figure out what Drex and Sora were really up to. And if I was very lucky, maybe I could even survive long enough to do something about it. I closed my eyes, the certificate still clutched in my hand. Tomorrow, I'd start digging properly. Tonight. I just needed to sleep and pretend that my life hadn't just become exponentially more complicated. Outside my workshop, the station hummed with its usual nighttime activity. Ships came and went. Deals were made in shadows. And somewhere in Docking Bay 42, my alien wife sat in our ship, probably planning something that would make my current problems look like a vacation. Welcome to married life. Calder Holt. Population me, standing outside in the cold. The next morning came with a pounding headache and the realization that my brilliant plan to find legal loopholes was going to be harder than I thought. Station law was labyrinthine at the best of times, and when you factored in interspecies marriage contracts and frontier territory regulations, it became a nightmare that would make even seasoned lawyers weep. I was nursing my third cup of synthetic coffee when my pad chimed with an incoming message. The sender was listed as your loving wife, which meant Sora had a sense of humor darker than the void between stars. Cargo manifest discrepancy in Bay 42. As co-owner, you're required to sign off on the inspection. 1 hour. I stared at the message, wondering if this was a trap or an opportunity. Either way, it was the first communication I'd had from her since she'd locked me out. I grabbed my toolkit out of habit, even though I doubted I'd be doing any actual repairs, and headed for the docking bay. The Resilience sat in its berth like it owned the place, which, technically, I suppose it did. The docking fees alone for a ship that size would bankrupt most traders. But Sora had paid 6 months in advance according to the public records I'd accessed. That kind of money didn't come from regular cargo runs. She was waiting at the bottom of the boarding ramp, all 4 arms crossed in what I assumed was the Verdanian equivalent of impatience. Today, She wore practical work clothes that somehow made her look even more imposing than the formal robes from our wedding. "You're late," she said. "Your message said 1 hour. It's been 58 minutes. Two of her eyes narrowed. "Station security needs both owners present for the inspection. Try not to embarrass yourself. I'll do my best to live up to your incredibly low expectations." The security team was already there, led by a Threnody officer, whose crystalline body refracted light in ways that made my eyes water. They went through the cargo hold with scanners that probably cost more than my entire workshop, checking each container against the manifest. "Everything appears to be in order," the Threnody officer said, their voice like wind chimes in a hurricane. "Standard agricultural supplies, medical equipment, industrial fabricators, all properly documented." I watched Sora's face, or tried to. Reading Verdanian expressions was like trying to understand poetry written in mathematics. But something flickered across her features when the officer scanned the containers marked as agricultural supplies. "We'll need both signatures," the officer continued, producing a data pad. Sora signed first, her hand moving with practiced efficiency. When she passed it to me, our fingers brushed for just a moment. Her skin was cooler than I expected, with a texture like polished stone. I signed, making it as elaborate as possible just to annoy her. The officer nodded, their crystalline head catching the dock lights, and the security team filed out. "That's it," I asked. "They call us down here for 30 seconds of scanning and a signature." "Station regulations," Sora said, but she was already moving, heading up the boarding ramp. "You can go now." "Actually, I can't." She stopped, turning slowly. All 6 eyes focused on me with an intensity that made me reconsider my next words. But I'd already started, so I might as well finish. "As co-owner, I have the right to inspect the cargo myself. Station Law, Section 8, Subsection 12. Any owner can demand a personal inspection within 24 hours of an official security check. You memorize station law." I had a long night and nothing better to do. "So, are you going to let me aboard? Or do I need to file a formal complaint with the Commerce Board?" The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. I could see her calculating, weighing options. Probably considering whether throwing me off the dock would be worth the paperwork. 15 minutes, she finally said. "Touch nothing. Speak to no one. Follow me." I followed her up the ramp, trying not to look too eager. The interior of the Resilience was everything I'd imagined and more. The corridors were wide enough to accommodate Sora's height, with panels that adjusted their lighting as we passed. The air had that particular quality you only found on well-maintained ships. Clean, but with undertones of ozone and metal. The cargo hold was massive, easily 3 times the size of my entire workshop. Containers were stacked in neat rows, secured with magnetic locks that hummed softly. I walked between them, pretending to inspect, while actually looking for anything out of place. "Satisfied?" Sora asked after exactly 14 minutes and 30 seconds. "The agricultural supplies," I said. "Their mass readings are off." She went very still. "Excuse me. I've been a mechanic for 15 years. I know how much things should weigh, and those containers are about 20% lighter than they should be if they were actually full of grain and protein supplements. Perhaps your expertise is as reliable as your financial management." Ouch. But I'm right. Aren't I? Those containers aren't carrying what the manifest says. She moved faster than something her size should be able to, one of her hands closing around my arm with enough force to make the bones creak. "You will forget what you think you noticed. You will leave this ship. You will not come back. Or what, you'll kill me, that would make the marriage pretty short." "There are worse things than death," Calder Holt. "Yeah, like being married to someone who locks me out of my own ship." She released me with a sound that might have been disgust or amusement. "You have no idea what you've involved yourself in." "Then tell me. Look, Sora, I know Drex set us both up. I know this ship used to belong to human explorers who disappeared, and I know you're moving something that isn't agricultural supplies. So maybe instead of threatening each other, we could try something revolutionary and actually talk." "Talking is what got my parents killed," she said quietly. And for the first time, I heard real emotion in her voice. Pain. Old, but still sharp. "Drex?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. "He's got something on you," I said. "Just like he's got something on everyone. That's how he operates. But here's the thing about Drex. He's smart, but he's not as smart as he thinks he is. And right now, he thinks he's got us both under control." "He does have us under control." "No, he has you under control. Me, I'm just the idiot who signed a marriage certificate. I've got nothing left to lose. Everyone has something to lose. Not me. I already lost my business, my reputation, my savings. Hell, the only thing I have left is a legal claim to half this ship, and you won't even let me sleep in the cargo hold." She studied me with those 6 eyes, and I had the uncomfortable feeling she was seeing more than I wanted to show. "The containers," she finally said, "are carrying medical supplies. Real medical supplies. Not what's on the manifest." "Why lie about it?" "Because certain medical supplies are restricted in this sector, particularly those used to treat Verdanian metabolic disorders." "You're sick." "No, but my people are. There's a colony 3 systems over, fighting a plague that the Galactic Health Council claims doesn't exist. The medicine they need is classified as a controlled substance because it can be synthesized into a powerful narcotic. So you're smuggling medicine to save lives." "I'm smuggling medicine that Drex procures, taking a massive cut, and using the profits to fund his expansion into new markets." "And if you don't?" "Then he reports the true nature of my cargo to station security. I lose the ship, go to prison, and the colony dies." I whistled low. "That's why you needed a human husband. Human marriage law would protect you from testifying against each other if this went to trial." "Drex's idea. He thinks he's being clever, creating a legal shield while also having leverage over both of us." "But you locked me out." "Because I didn't know if you were his spy. Marrying me could have been your way of getting inside information." "Do I look like spy material to you?" She gave me a long look. "You look like someone desperate enough to do anything for money." "Fair point. But if I was Drex's spy, would I be pointing out discrepancies in your cargo?" "Unless that's exactly what he told you to do to gain my trust." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "You've really thought this through. Haven't you? Every angle. Every possibility. Must be exhausting being that paranoid." "It's kept me alive." "Yeah, but is that really living?" Before she could answer, an alarm started blaring through the ship. Not the gentle chime of a standard alert, but the skull-piercing wail that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. Sora moved immediately, her long strides carrying her toward the bridge. I followed, having to run to keep up. The bridge was a wonder of technology, screens and displays covering every surface, all of them now flashing red. "What is it?" I asked. "Proximity alert. Ship approaching fast. No identification beacon." On the main screen, a vessel appeared, sleek and predatory. I recognized the configuration immediately. That's a Warwick Industries interceptor. High-end pirate tech. Pirates don't operate this close to the station. They do if someone's paying them enough. The interceptor wasn't slowing down. In fact, it was accelerating, heading straight for the docking bay. "They're going to ram us," I said, incredulous. "No," Sora said, her hands flying over the controls. "They're going to board us." The interceptor fired magnetic grapples that slammed into the Resilience's hull with enough force to shake the entire ship. Through the view screen, I could see armed figures preparing to breach our airlock. "Can we detach?" "Not without tearing half the ship apart. The grapples are military grade." "Then we fight." She looked at me like I'd suggested we negotiate with vacuum. "With what you're a mechanic, not a soldier." "Yeah, but I'm a mechanic who knows this ship's systems. You installed a force field to keep me out. Right. Can we reverse it? Her eyes widened. All 6 of them, as she understood. The defensive grid. If we overload it and reverse the polarity, it'll turn the airlock corridor into a Tesla coil. Anything metal becomes a conductor. That's insane. That's engineering. She was already pulling up the ship's schematics. I need 5 minutes to reconfigure the system. You've got 3, maybe. I grabbed a plasma cutter from an emergency kit and headed for the airlock. If they breached before Sora finished, someone needed to slow them down. The corridor leading to the airlock was narrow, designed as a natural choke point. I could hear the cutting tools working on the other side, see the metal beginning to glow. Sora, how's that reconfiguration coming? 60 seconds, her voice crackled over the intercom. The airlock door exploded inward, and pirates poured through. They were a mix of species, all heavily armed and armored. The lead one, a Calarian with scarred scales, pointed a rifle at me. Step aside, human. We're here for the cargo. Which cargo? We've got a lot. Don't play stupid. The medical supplies. So they knew, which meant Drex had either sold us out or this was his play all along. 40 seconds, Sora whispered in my ear through the comm. Look, I said, raising my hands. I'm just the mechanic. I don't even have access to the cargo hold. My wife locked me out. We're having marital problems. The Calarian laughed. A sound like grinding gears. The great Sora Thal, married to this pathetic human Drex, was right. This is amusing. 20 seconds. I backed up slowly, drawing them further into the corridor. So Drex sent you. Drex pays well for information, but the cargo is ours to claim. 10 seconds. One problem with that plan, I said. What's that? You're standing in my ship. The force field activated with a sound, like reality tearing. The corridor lit up with crackling energy, as every piece of metal the pirates wore became a conductor. They convulsed, weapons firing randomly as their nervous systems overloaded. The light was blinding, the smell of ozone overwhelming. When it finally stopped, the pirates were unconscious, some possibly dead. I didn't stick around to check. I ran back to the bridge where Sora was already sealing off the breached airlock and detaching the grapples. We need to leave, she said. Now. We can't just leave the station. Watch me. She was already firing up the engines, the Resilience humming to life around us. Through the view screen, I could see station security finally responding, ships launching from other bays. If we run, we look guilty. We are guilty. We just electrocuted a pirate crew. In self-defense. You think Drex cares about that distinction? He owns half the judges in this sector. She had a point. The Resilience pulled away from the dock, probably causing massive damage to the station's infrastructure. Add that to my tab, I supposed. Where are we going? The colony that needs the medicine. We deliver it, then disappear. What about Drex? What about him? He'll come after us. Let him try. I watched the station shrink behind us as Sora engaged the quantum drive. Stars stretched into lines, and reality became negotiable. I was now officially a fugitive, married to an alien smuggler, flying through space in a stolen ship full of illegal medical supplies. Somehow, this was still better than being broke and alone in my workshop. Thank you, Sora said quietly. For what? For the force field idea, for not being Drex's spy, for being smarter than you look. That's the nicest thing you've said to me since we got married. It's been less than 2 days. Still counts. She made that sound again, the one that might be amusement. You realize this is just the beginning. Right? Drex won't let this go. He'll send more than pirates next time. Then we'd better be ready. Well, I can't exactly go back to the station now. Can I? Besides, someone needs to maintain this ship, and you obviously can't trust anyone else. I don't trust you either. But you trust me more than you did yesterday. She didn't deny it, which I took as progress. The quantum jump ended. dropping us back into normal space near a small colony world. It looked diseased, even from orbit. Patches of brown and gray spreading across what should have been green continents. The plague, Sora explained. It attacks plant life first, then moves up the food chain. The Verdanians here have maybe 3 months before total ecosystem collapse. And the medicine will stop it. It'll give them time to develop a permanent cure. My parents were working on one before. She trailed off. Before Drex happened.
Yes.
We sat in silence for a moment, watching the dying world below. So what now? I asked. Now we land, deliver the medicine, and figure out how to survive long enough to take down Drex. Just like that. Do you have a better plan? I thought about it. My life on the station was over. My workshop was probably already being stripped for parts. But I was on a magnificent ship with an alien wife who was slowly starting to trust me. And we had a chance to save an entire colony while sticking it to the man who'd ruined both our lives. No, I said. Your plan sounds good, but I have one condition. All 6 eyes turned to me. I get a bed on this ship. A real bed, not a cot in the cargo hold. She considered this for a long moment. There's a cabin on deck 3. It's small. Bigger than my workshop. Slightly. Then it's perfect. As we descended toward the colony, I caught her reflection in the view screen. For just a moment, I could have sworn I saw her smile. It was alien and strange and barely recognizable as a smile. But it was there. Maybe this marriage thing would work out after all. Assuming we survived Drex's inevitable retaliation, avoided station security, delivered the medicine without getting caught, and somehow managed to take down one of the most powerful criminals in the sector. But hey, I'd had worse odds. The Resilience touched down on the colony's main landing pad, and I could see Verdanians already gathering, hope visible even in their alien features. We had medicine to deliver, lives to save, and a crime boss to destroy. Just another day in my new life as a married man. The colony's medical facility was a converted cargo container that had seen better decades. Paint peeled from its walls like dead skin, and the air recycler wheezed with every breath. But the Verdanians who gathered around us didn't seem to care about the aesthetics. They only had eyes for the cases of medicine we were unloading. Careful with that one, I called out as 2 younger Verdanians struggled with a particularly heavy container. The stabilizers are temperature sensitive. Too much jostling and they'll break down into useless proteins. Sora glanced at me, 3 of her eyes showing surprise. You know about pharmaceutical stabilizers. I fix ships for smugglers. Remember, you learn things. Like how certain medicines need specific storage conditions, or they become very expensive water. The colony's medical officer, an elderly Verdanian named Korvac, whose scales had faded to a dull gray, examined each case with reverence. This will save us, he said, his voice harmony layered with emotion. 300 lives, maybe more. Thank my wife, I said, nodding toward Sora. She's the one who risked everything to get it here. Sora's skin shifted to a deeper purple, which I was starting to recognize as embarrassment or discomfort. We need to leave soon. Drex will have trackers on us by now. Actually, I said, pulling out my pad, I might have bought us some time. What did you do? While you were flying, I was thinking, Drex is smart, but he's also predictable. He runs everything through his corporate shells, right? So I hacked into the station's commerce database and filed some interesting paperwork. What kind of paperwork? A legal claim disputing the ownership of the Resilience. According to the documents I filed, the marriage contract has a clause that requires both parties to approve any major financial decisions. Since you took the ship without my written consent, technically, you stole from me. Sora's eyes narrowed dangerously. You filed theft charges against me. Relax. I also filed a counterclaim saying I gave retroactive permission. But here's the beautiful part. The station's legal system now has to process both claims, cross-reference them with the marriage contract, verify the signatures, Check for precedents in interspecies marriage law. I created a bureaucratic nightmare that'll take weeks to untangle. And Drex can't move against us officially until it's resolved, Sora said, understanding dawning across her features. Exactly. He'll have to rely on unofficial channels, pirates, mercenaries, assassins, but no station security, no official warrants. We're legally in limbo. Korvac cleared his throat, a sound like grinding stones. Not to interrupt, but we have a more immediate problem. He led us to a viewing platform that overlooked the colony's main settlement. The plague's damage was even worse up close. Entire crop fields had turned to black sludge, and the air carried the sweet, sick smell of decay. The medicine will stop the plague from spreading, Korvac explained. But it won't reverse the damage. We need protein supplements, water purifiers, and atmospheric scrubbers. Without them, the medicine just delays the inevitable. How much would all that cost? I asked. More than we have. More than we could ever have. I looked at Sora. She was already doing the math in her head. I could tell by the way her lower eyes tracked invisible numbers. The Resilience has a fabrication bay, she said slowly. Industrial grade. We could manufacture water purifiers, maybe even basic atmospheric scrubbers. But not protein supplements, I added. Those require organic base materials we don't have. Unless... Sora turned to me, all 6 eyes bright with an idea. Those agricultural containers, the ones with the false manifest, they're full of medicine. No, only half full. I had to maintain the weight ratios to fool casual scans. The rest of the space is filled with actual grain and protein paste. Enough to feed the colony for months if rationed properly. I stared at her. You brought food as padding. It seemed wasteful to use synthetic filling when people were starving. Sora Thal, you're a criminal with a heart of gold. I'm a practical person who doesn't waste resources, she corrected. But I caught that slight shift in her coloration again. We spent the next 2 days working 18-hour shifts. Sora operated the fabrication bay, producing water purifiers with an efficiency that would have made my old engineering professors weep with joy. I distributed the food supplies and helped install the purifiers, teaching the colonists how to maintain them. It was during one of these installation sessions that I noticed something odd. A young Verdanian, barely adult by their species standards, was watching me with 2 eyes while keeping the other 4 on different tasks. It was subtle, but I'd learned to read Verdanian body language from Sora. Something on your mind? I asked in what I hoped was a casual tone. You're the human who married Sora Thal, they said. Guilty as charged. My uncle works on Rydara Station. He says Drex Valor is hunting you. Your uncle has good information. He also says Drex has placed a bounty, 50,000 credits for your location. I kept working, tightening a seal on the purifier that didn't need tightening. That's a lot of money. Yes, it is. Enough to buy medicine for when the current supply runs out. The young Verdanian's coloration shifted through several shades I couldn't interpret. The thought had occurred to others, but not to you. I've seen what you and Sora Thal have done here. But others, hunger makes people desperate. Desperation makes them dangerous. I finished with the purifier and stood, my knees protesting after hours of kneeling. Thanks for the warning. They inclined their head and moved away. But the damage was done. I could feel the shift in atmosphere, see it in the way some of the colonists watched us now. Not with gratitude, but with calculation. I found Sora in the fabrication bay, her 4 arms working independently on different parts of an atmospheric scrubber. We have a problem, I said. She didn't look up. The bounty! You knew. I have security protocols monitoring all communications from the planet. 3 messages have been sent to Rydara Station in the last hour. And you didn't think to mention this? I was finishing the scrubber. It seemed more important than acknowledging the inevitable. The inevitable being betrayal. It's a fundamental constant in the universe. Everyone betrays everyone, given sufficient motivation. That's a pretty dark worldview. It's a realistic worldview. She finally looked at me, all 6 eyes, showing exhaustion. We should leave. We can't. Not yet. These scrubbers need to be installed, and someone needs to show them how to maintain the equipment. Then we stay and fight whoever comes for the bounty. Or, I said, an idea forming, we give them what they want. Sora's hand stopped moving. Explain. The bounty is for our location. Right. So we give it to them. But we control when and how. I pulled out my pad and started sketching out a plan. We send a message to Drex, telling him exactly where we are. But we also include evidence of what we've been doing here. Saving the colony. Distributing medicine and food. We make it public. Broadcast it on every channel we can access. He'll send everything he has after us. Yes. But he'll also expose himself. Right now, Drex operates in shadows. He's the businessman everyone knows is dirty, but no one can prove it. But if he attacks a ship that's on a humanitarian mission, that's different. That's news. You want to use the colonists as shields? No. I want to use public opinion as a weapon. Drex's power comes from his reputation as a legitimate businessman. If we can destroy that, we destroy him. Sora leaned back, considering. It's insane. It's human. We're really good at insane plans. What if he doesn't care about public opinion? Then, we're no worse off than we are now. But I've met Drex. His ego is his weakness. He needs to be seen as powerful, but legitimate. Take that away, and he's just another criminal. Sora was quiet for a long moment. Her skin cycling through colors I was beginning to recognize as deep thought. We'd need a journalist. Someone with reach beyond this sector. I might know someone, I said, remembering a client from years ago. Tamara Reese. She's an investigative journalist who specializes in corporate corruption. I fixed her ship after she'd pissed off the wrong executive. She owes me a favor. Can you trust her? I saved her life and never told anyone she was hiding in my shop for 3 days. Yeah, I trust her. Then make the call. The connection took forever to establish. Quantum communication across sectors wasn't cheap, and we were routing it through so many proxies that the signal degraded with each jump. But finally, Tamara's face appeared on the screen, her expression shifting from annoyance to surprise. Calder, holy hell, I heard you were dead. Greatly exaggerated. Listen, Tam, I need that favor. After 3 years of radio silence, I've been busy getting married and becoming a wanted fugitive. Sounds like there's a story there. Bigger than you know. How would you like to expose Drex Valor? Her expression sharpened. The investigative journalist scenting blood. I'm listening. I laid it out for her. The forced marriage, the medical smuggling, the dying colony, all of it. By the time I finished, her eyes were gleaming with the kind of hunger that had made her famous in certain circles. You have proof. Documents, recordings, the works. Plus, we're about to give you live footage of Drex's forces attacking a humanitarian mission. You're using yourself as bait. It's called controlling the narrative. You taught me that, remember? She laughed. I also taught you that controlling the narrative doesn't mean much if you're dead. Then I guess we'd better not die. Send me everything you have. I'll need 3 hours to verify and prepare. Can you hold out that long? I looked at Sora, who nodded. We'll manage. After the call ended, we prepared. Sora revealed weapons caches I hadn't known existed, while I worked on turning the ship's communications array into a broadcasting station. The colonists, having overheard our plans, faced a choice. They could claim the bounty and go back to slowly dying, or they could help us and maybe, just maybe, have a future. Korvac made the decision for them. We stand with you, he announced to the assembled colonists. These people saved us when no one else would. We will not forget that. Not everyone agreed. I could see it in their faces. But peer pressure is a powerful force, and no one wanted to be the first to openly dissent. The attack came exactly when we expected it. Drex had sent 3 ships this time. Not pirates, but actual mercenaries. Professional, well-equipped, and utterly without mercy. They came in fast, weapons hot, clearly intending to disable us quickly. "Broadcasting now," I announced, activating our jury-rigged transmitter. "We're live to 16 systems. On every public channel we could access, our message played. Video of the dying colony, the medicine distribution, the children whose lives we'd saved. And over it all, Tamara's voice narrating the story of Drex Valor's corruption." The lead mercenary ship hailed us. "Surrender now, and we might let the colonists live." "Counteroffer," I replied, making sure the broadcast caught every word. "You leave now, and we won't reveal that the Crimson Nova Mercenary Company is attacking a humanitarian mission." There was a pause. I could imagine the frantic communications between the ships, the realization that they were being watched by millions across multiple systems. "You think this changes anything?" The mercenary captain's voice was cold. "We have a contract. And we have shields," Sora said, bringing the Resilience's defensive systems online. The first barrage hit us like a hammer. The ship shook, panels sparked, and somewhere in the lower decks, something expensive broke, but the shields held. "Return fire," Sora asked. "No, we're humanitarian workers. Remember, we don't shoot first." "They're going to destroy us." "Maybe, but they're going to do it in front of the entire galaxy." The second barrage was worse. Shields dropped to 60%, and I could smell ozone and burnt metal. The colonists huddled in the reinforced sections we'd designated as shelters, while Sora and I fought to keep the ship together. "Calder," Tamara's voice crackled through the communication system. "You've got incoming. Military vessels? Federal intervention class?" "Federal, since when do they care about frontier colonies?" "Since about 2 minutes ago when someone leaked documents showing Drex has been skimming from federal tax revenues." I looked at Sora. "Did you?" "I might have included some additional files in our broadcast package. Financial records I've been collecting." "You beautiful, terrifying woman." The federal ships dropped out of quantum space like avenging angels. 3 cruisers, each one dwarfing the mercenary vessels. Their commander's voice boomed across all channels. "This is Admiral Haskell of the Federal Enforcement Fleet. All vessels will stand down immediately. Any further hostilities will be met with overwhelming force." The mercenaries, professionals that they were, recognized a losing situation. Their ships powered down weapons and began to retreat, but the Federal ships moved to block them. "Negative on that withdrawal," Admiral Haskell announced. "You're all under arrest for attempted piracy, assault on a civilian vessel, and interference with a humanitarian mission." I slumped in my chair, adrenaline crash hitting hard. "We did it." "We survived," Sora corrected. "That's not the same as winning." She was right, of course. Drex was still out there, still powerful, still dangerous. But we'd bloodied his nose, exposed his operations, and lived to tell about it. The Federal ships escorted us back to the colony, where Admiral Haskell himself came aboard. He was older than I expected, with the kind of scars that suggested he'd earned his rank the hard way. "Mr. Holt, Miss Thal," he said, looking between us with an expression I couldn't read. "You've caused quite a stir." "We were just delivering medicine," I said innocently. "You were live-streaming an illegal firefight while revealing classified financial documents. Multitasking is an important skill." He almost smiled. Almost. "The Federal Authority has been trying to nail Drex Valor for years. Your little stunt gave us the excuse we needed to freeze his assets and issue a warrant." "So you're arresting him?" "If we can find him." "He disappeared about an hour ago, along with most of his liquid assets." "He's running," Sora said. "For now. But he'll be back. Men like Drex don't give up easily." Haskell turned to leave, then paused. "Your marriage. It's legal but unusual. The Federal Authority will be reviewing it for potential fraud. Review away, I said. We have nothing to hide. That was a lie, of course. We had tons to hide. But at that moment, standing next to Sora in our battered ship, surrounded by colonists we'd saved and federal ships that weren't shooting at us, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. After Haskell left, Sora and I stood on the bridge, watching the federal ships patrol the space around the colony. The immediate danger had passed, but we both knew this was just the beginning.
"He'll come for us," Sora said. "Let him. We beat him once."
We got lucky once. Maybe. Or maybe we're just better than he thinks. She turned to look at me, all 6 eyes, focused with an intensity that still made me nervous. You risked everything. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. Try again. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Because for the first time in my life, I was part of something that mattered. This ship, this mission, you. It's worth fighting for. Her skin shifted through several colors before settling on a deep violet. You hardly know me. I know enough. I know you care more about others than yourself. I know you're brave enough to stand up to Drex. And I know you make one hell of a partner in a crisis. Partner, she repeated, as if testing the word. If you'll have me. I mean, we're already married. Might as well make it a real partnership. She was quiet for so long I thought I'd overstepped. Then, slowly, one of her 4 hands reached out and took mine. Partners, she agreed. Her skin was still cool, still alien, but somehow it felt right. We stood there, human and Verdanian, watching the stars and planning our next move. Because this wasn't over. Drex was still out there. The colony still needed help. And we had a ship full of secrets that somebody was going to come looking for eventually. But for now, for this moment, we were partners. And that was enough. 3 weeks had passed since the federal intervention, and we'd settled into something resembling a routine. The Resilience drifted in the neutral space between systems, far enough from any jurisdiction to avoid questions, but close enough to civilization to resupply when needed. Sora had been teaching me the ship's more complex systems, and I'd been showing her human engineering tricks that made her 6 eyes blink in sequence, which I'd learned was her version of being impressed. We were in the middle of recalibrating the quantum drive when every alarm on the ship went off simultaneously. That's not possible, Sora said, her 4 hands flying over different control panels. All systems are showing critical failure at the same time. Sabotage, I asked, already pulling up diagnostic screens. No, it's... Wait. She froze, all 6 eyes widening. The date. Check the date. I looked at the chronometer and felt my blood turn to ice. The registration renewal. The ship's registration expired today. But that should just be a fine, not... Unless someone flagged it for immediate impound upon expiration. I was already pulling up the registration database. Drex. He must have filed the flag months ago, knowing we'd miss it in all the chaos. The ship shuddered as the automated impound protocols kicked in. The engines powered down. Life support switched to minimal, and the navigation system locked us out completely. We were dead in space. Can you overwrite it? Not without the registration codes. And those are... Sora's color shifted to a pale blue I'd never seen before. Those are in Drex's name. He's still listed as the primary trustee. What about the marriage contract? Doesn't that transfer ownership? Only if properly filed with the Transport Authority. Which we never did, because we were too busy running for our lives. I slumped into my chair. After everything we'd survived, we were going to lose the ship to bureaucracy. There has to be a way, I muttered, pulling up every technical manual I could find. No system is perfect. This one is... The impound protocols are hardwired into the ship's core. Even if we physically destroyed them, the backup systems would... She stopped mid-sentence, her skin flickering through several colors rapidly. What? The backup systems. They're not in the core. They're in the auxiliary processor bay, which is Deck 6, Section 4, behind the cargo hold. We ran through the ship's corridors, emergency lighting casting strange shadows. The auxiliary processor bay was exactly where Sora said it would be. A cramped space filled with quantum processors and enough cable to wrap around a small moon. If we disconnect the backup systems, I said, tracing the connections with my finger, the ship will default to manual control for about 10 minutes before the core realizes what we've done and locks everything down permanently. 10 minutes to file the proper paperwork and transfer ownership. The Transport Authority's response time is minimum 3 hours. Then we need a different plan. I studied the processors, an idea forming. What if we don't disconnect them? What if we convince them the registration is valid? That's impossible. The verification comes from the Transport Authority directly. No, it comes from what the ship thinks is the Transport Authority. See this? I pointed to a specific processor. This is the communication authenticator. It verifies that signals are coming from legitimate sources. You want to fake a Transport Authority signal? I want to borrow their signal. Look, the Authority broadcasts a constant carrier wave for authentication. If we can capture that wave, modify it with our own data, and feed it back to the ship, we'd be committing fraud on a federal level. We'd be saving our ship from a criminal who's trying to steal it through legal loopholes. Sora considered this. Her colors shifting through what I'd learned was her thinking spectrum. What do you need? Your quantum entanglement communicator, every spare processor we have, and about 3 liters of that Verdanian coffee you've been hiding.
How did you know about the coffee?
I'm a mechanic. I know every smell on this ship. For the next 6 hours, we worked in focused silence. I built the signal interceptor, while Sora programmed the authentication spoofer. It was highly illegal, monumentally stupid, and our only chance. Ready, I asked, my finger hovering over the activation switch.
If this doesn't work, we'll be arrested for federal fraud.
If this doesn't work, we'll have bigger problems than arrest. Drex will get the ship. She nodded, and I threw the switch. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the lights flickered, the engines hummed to life, and the navigation system came back online.
It worked,
Sora breathed. For now, we need to... The main view screen activated, showing a face I'd hoped never to see again. Drex looked older, harder, with a new scar across his left cheek that hadn't been there 3 weeks ago. "Hello, lovebirds," he said, his smile all teeth and malice. "Having technical difficulties.
How are you? Accessing your communications. Please, Calder. I built backdoors into every ship I've ever owned. The Resilience has been transmitting your location to me since the day you left."
The federal warrant doesn't apply in the outer territories, where you conveniently are right now. No jurisdiction, no protection. Just you, your wife, and the 3 heavy cruisers I have surrounding you. The proximity sensors confirmed it. 3 ships, each twice the size of the Resilience, weapons powered and locked on. What do you want, Drex? What I've always wanted. My ship back. And you 2 in chains. The bounty on you has increased significantly since your little broadcast stunt. The cartels want you dead. The syndicates want you alive. And I'm willing to sell to the highest bidder. Counteroffer, Sora said, stepping into view of the screen. You leave now, and I don't activate the insurance policy I've been preparing. Drex laughed. What insurance policy?
The one where I've documented every illegal transaction you've made in the last 10 years. Names, dates, amounts, and most importantly, where the bodies are buried. Literally, in some cases.
You're bluffing. Am I? Sora pulled up a holographic display. Data streams flowing past too fast to read individually, but clear enough to recognize as financial records. Would you like me to start with the Kelridge incident, or perhaps your arrangement with the Thakari slave traders? Drex's smile faded. You release that. You're dead.
We're dead anyway. At least this way. We take you with us. Unless, I added, seeing where Sora was going, we make a deal. I don't make deals with thieves.
That's funny, considering your entire business model. But here's the thing. Drex, you're not the only one who's been busy these 3 weeks. While you were hunting us, I was digging into your past, specifically, into the Meridian Exploration Collective. His face went very still.
Yeah, I continued. I know about them. I know this ship was theirs. And I know what happened to them. You know nothing.
I know they found something. Something valuable enough that you killed 38 people to get it.
Prove it. I don't have to. But she does. I nodded to Sora. Tell him about your parents.
Sora's skin shifted to a deep purple-black, the color of controlled rage. My parents were part of the Meridian Collective, xenobiologists, hired to study new life forms. They sent me a message before they died, encrypted in a way only I could decode. Impossible. I destroyed all communications. You destroyed the official communications. But Verdanians have other ways of sending messages. Quantum entanglement on a biological level. My parents' last act was to send me everything. The coordinates, the discovery, and most importantly, proof of your involvement. If you had proof, you would have used it.
I was 11 years old when they died. It took me 15 years to decode the message, another 5 to track down the ship. You weren't the only one playing a long game. Drex.
I stared at Sora, realizing how much she'd been hiding. This wasn't just about smuggling medicine or escaping Drex's control. This was about revenge. Even if that's true, Drex said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. You can't do anything with it. The statute of limitations doesn't apply to genocide, I interrupted. The word hung in the air like a physical presence. Drex's face went pale.
The Meridian Collective found a sentient species, didn't they? I continued, pieces falling into place. Something unprecedented. And you destroyed them to claim the discovery for yourself. You can't prove genocide without bodies.
Actually, Sora said.
I can...
She pulled up another display. This one, showing biological data. The specimens in Cargo Bay 4. You thought they were agricultural samples. They're not. They're genetic material from the species you destroyed. Enough to prove they existed, and enough to prove they were sentient. You've been carrying evidence this whole time. I've been waiting for the right moment. And now, with the entire galaxy watching thanks to our recent fame, seems perfect. Drex's image flickered, and I realized he was pacing on his bridge. What do you want? Full ownership of the Resilience, clear and legal. All claims dropped, all bounties canceled, and you disappear. Forever. That's it.
That's it.
No revenge, no justice for your parents. Watching you lose everything is justice enough. Your reputation is already destroyed. Your assets are frozen. Your associates have abandoned you. You're commanding stolen ships with crews that will betray you the moment you can't pay them. You're already dead, Drex. You just haven't stopped moving yet. The silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Drex spoke. Send me the transfer documents. Sora already had them prepared. The legal transfer of ownership, clear and uncontested. Drex's signature appeared on the documents, followed by biometric confirmation. It's done, he said. The ship is yours. And the evidence stays buried. As long as you keep your word. Unlike you, Drex, I honor my agreements. His image disappeared, and the 3 cruisers began to pull away. I waited until they were completely out of sensor range before speaking. You're really going to let him go? For now. The evidence is already in federal hands. Has been for an hour. Admiral Haskell was very interested in what I had to share. I stared at her. You played him. I played everyone, including you. What? She turned to face me fully. All 6 eyes, focused with an intensity that made my heart skip. I knew who you were before Drex ever approached you. Calder Holt. The mechanic who could fix anything. who helped people the law wouldn't protect. I knew Drex would choose you for the marriage because you were desperate and skilled.
You set me up.
I saved you. Drex was going to kill you after the marriage. Make it look like an accident. I locked you out to protect you until I could figure out if you were trustworthy.
And now?
Now I know you are. You've proven it a dozen times over. She moved closer, having to bend down to look me in the eyes. I'm sorry for the deception, but I needed someone I could trust, and you were worth the risk. I should have been angry. I should have felt betrayed. Instead, I found myself laughing. So this whole time, you've been 3 steps ahead of everyone. 4 steps, actually. The quantum transmitter I installed isn't just for communication. It's been broadcasting everything to a secure server. Every conversation, every threat, every piece of evidence, including Drex's confession just now.
That's brilliant and terrifying.
Thank you. So what now? We have the ship. Drex is handled. The colony is safe. What's next? There's still the matter of what my parents actually discovered. Which is... She pulled up a star chart, highlighting a system I didn't recognize. A planet with sentient crystalline life forms. They communicate through harmonic frequencies, exist partially in quantum space, and have technology that makes ours look like stone tools.
And Drex destroyed them.
No, he tried to. But they survived, hidden in quantum space. They've been waiting for someone to find them again. Someone who wouldn't exploit them. And you want to find them? I want to return what was stolen from them. The genetic samples aren't just evidence. They're their children, preserved in stasis. My parents died trying to protect them. I looked at the star chart, at the journey it represented. It would take months, maybe years. It would be dangerous, possibly fatal. It was exactly the kind of insane adventure I'd never have considered a month ago.
When do we leave?
You're coming with me. Partner, remember besides, someone needs to keep this ship running, and you still don't know the difference between a plasma injector and a fusion regulator. I do too. Really? Which one is this? I held up a component I'd been working on. That's a plasma regulator. It's a coffee maker. She made that sound that was definitely laughter now, her colors shifting to warm gold. I suppose I do need a mechanic.
And a husband, apparently. Speaking of which, we should probably talk about that.
The marriage.
It's legal, but it's not real. We could annul it now that Drex is gone.
She was quiet for a moment, her colors shifting through patterns I couldn't interpret.
Do you want to annul it?
I asked you first. That's not an answer. Neither is that. We stared at each other. 2 people who'd been thrown together by circumstance, who'd fought and survived against impossible odds, who'd somehow become partners in the truest sense.
I don't want to annul it,
I said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I think we should take time to figure out what we actually are to each other. That seems reasonable. We have a long journey ahead of us. Months in space with nowhere to run. Concerned. Terrified, but also excited. I've never been this far from human space before.
I'll protect you. I thought I was supposed to protect you. Isn't that the human husband stereotype?
We'll protect each other. That's what partners do. She extended one of her hands, and I took it. Her skin was still cool, still alien, but familiar now, comfortable. There's one more thing, she said. The crystalline beings. They have a name for themselves. They call themselves the Resonance. The resonance and the resilience sounds like fate. Sounds like coincidence. You don't believe in fate. I believe in choice, and I choose this ship, this mission, this partnership.
Even the marriage, especially the marriage. It might have started as a lie, but that doesn't mean it has to end as one.
I squeezed her hand, feeling the strength in it, the steadiness. Then let's go find the resonance, and along the way, maybe we'll figure out what we are. I already know what we are, she said. Oh, we're complicated. I laughed. That's one word for it. The ship hummed around us as Sora programmed the navigation system for the long journey ahead. I went to the engineering bay to begin preparations, running diagnostics and stockpiling spare parts. We'd need everything in perfect condition for what was coming. As I worked, I found myself thinking about how much had changed. A month ago, I was a broke mechanic with nothing to lose. Now I was married to an alien, owned half of an incredible ship, and was about to embark on a mission to find a lost civilization. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Calder, Sora's voice came over the intercom. We have a problem. Already, we haven't even left yet. Remember the registration hack you did? Yeah. The Transport Authority noticed. They're sending an investigation team. I sighed. How long do we have? 6 hours before they arrive. Then we'd better be gone in 5. I rushed back to the bridge where Sora was preparing for an emergency departure. Can we make it? If we push the engines and skip safety protocols, maybe. What could go wrong? We could explode. Besides that, we could implode. Creative, let's do it. We worked together with the efficiency of people who'd learned to trust each other completely. She handled navigation while I coaxed every bit of power from the engines. The ship protested, groaned, and at one point made a sound like a dying whale, but it held together. 4 hours and 53 minutes later, we made the jump to quantum space, leaving the Transport Authority investigators staring at empty space where we'd been. We did it, I said, collapsing into my chair. We're fugitives again. Were we ever not fugitives? Good point. The quantum space corridor stretched around us, a tunnel of impossibly beautiful light and color. We were racing toward the unknown, toward danger and discovery in equal measure. Sora. Yes. Thank you. For what? For choosing me. Even if it was all planned, you still could have picked anyone else. I didn't want anyone else. I wanted someone who would see me as more than just a giant alien. Someone who would argue with me, challenge me, make terrible jokes in life-threatening situations. I make excellent jokes. You really don't. But you laugh anyway. I do. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the universe bend around us. Somewhere ahead lay the resonance, waiting to be found. Somewhere behind, Drex was probably realizing he'd been outplayed. And here in the middle, 2 unlikely partners were figuring out how to be married. Hey, Sora. Yes. What does that color mean? The one you're turning now? She looked at her arms, which had shifted to a soft rose color I'd never seen before. I'm not sure. It's new. New. Verdanians change colors based on emotions. But sometimes, when we experience something we've never felt before, we develop new patterns. So what are you feeling? She turned to look at me, all 6 eyes soft with something I couldn't quite name. I think humans call it hope. I smiled. Hope's a good color on you. Everything's a good color on me. Confident. Accurate. The resilience raced on through quantum space, carrying 2 people who'd started as strangers, became partners, and were slowly becoming something more. It wasn't the love story either of us had planned. But then again, nothing about our lives had gone according to plan. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. 6 months. That's how long we'd been traveling through the depths of space, following coordinates that were 20 years old toward a species that might not even exist anymore. 6 months of just Sora and me on the Resilience, learning each other's rhythms, habits, and the 1,000 small ways 2 people adapt when they're stuck in a metal can hurtling through the void. You're doing it wrong, Sora said, watching me attempt to prepare a traditional Verdanian breakfast. I'm following your recipe exactly. The recipe says to fold the protein sheets gently. You're manhandling them like engine parts. Everything is engine parts if you're creative enough. She reached over me with 2 of her arms,